I want you to imagine, just for a second, packing up your entire life. Like you are actually taping up those cardboard boxes, you're saying your final goodbyes, and you are moving to a tropical archipelago.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's the ultimate dream right there.
Right. And I do not mean for, a quick 2-week vacation. I mean permanently.
Yeah.
You are trading in the gray skies, the relentless daily commute, and the winter coats for white sand beaches, mangoes year-round, and just that slow rhythm of island life.
It really is the ultimate escapist fantasy. I
Mm.
mean, we all have that moment, usually in the middle of a particularly stressful Tuesday, where we think, I should just sell absolutely everything and move to the tropics.
Exactly. I feel like everyone has Googled that at least once. But then the daydream usually hits this massive, unmoving brick wall.
Oh, yeah, the bureaucracy.
The dreaded bureaucracy. It's one thing to buy a plane ticket, but how do you actually navigate the legal maze of moving to a country like the Philippines? Because you can't just show up with your suitcases and declare yourself a resident.
No, definitely not. Immigration does not work like that.
Right. There are visas, there are permits, clearances, taxes. It usually feels like this insurmountable mountain of paperwork that just actively discourages anyone from making the leap.
And that administrative friction of becoming an expat is often what keeps that dream firmly locked in the realm of fantasy. Governments, generally speaking, they just do not make it easy for foreign nationals to move within their borders indefinitely.
Yeah, they want to know who you are.
Exactly. It requires proving your worth, your financial stability, and your intentions over and over again. It's exhausting.
Which brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We have actually gotten our hands on this fascinating, incredibly detailed presentation directly from the Philippine Retirement Authority, or the PRA.
And it is a dense document.
It is. It's an internal breakdown of a very specific program called the Special Resident Retirees Visa, the SRRV. So our goal today is to extract the exact mechanics, the hidden perks, and honestly, the quite surprising requirements of securing this highly sought-after visa.
It really is a revealing look under the hood, too. Because looking at the raw mechanics of a government program like this, it tells us so much about what a country actually values.
Right, like who they actually want to bring in.
Exactly. Who they are strategically trying to attract
Mhm.
and how they are positioning themselves in this, increasingly competitive global mobility market.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because looking at this presentation, it's not just a dry list of rules. It actually reads like a manual for anyone looking to kind of hack the concept of borders.
It really does.
But before we get into the strict qualifications of, who gets to cross the velvet rope, we need to understand the fundamental motivations. Like, why would someone go through this intensive process in the first place? And what exactly is the Philippine government putting on the table to convince them to do it?
Well, the motivations driving the applicants are key to understanding the whole architecture of this visa. The PRA recognizes the expected traditional reasons, obviously.
Like the cost of living.
Right, a much lower cost of living compared to Western countries. Or establishing a halfway home during the harsh winter months. Or just, securing a reliable, accessible weekend getaway destination in Southeast Asia.
But the list doesn't stop there. And this was my first genuine surprise when looking at the source material. They explicitly highlight motivations like studying English, finishing college degrees, and even investing and starting new businesses.
Yeah, that completely changes the demographic they're targeting.
Exactly. Because when you hear the word retirement, you naturally picture a beach chair, a golf course, and a quiet pension. You don't usually picture someone finishing their bachelor's degree or launching a tech startup.
And what's fascinating here is the bureaucratic architecture behind the program. The Philippine Retirement Authority was actually made an attached agency of the Department of Tourism back in 2009.
Wait, really? The Department of Tourism?
Yes, and that is a massive clue to their strategy. They are treating this visa not just as a quiet, final resting place for the elderly, but as a dynamic tourism and economic development tool.
So it's an active strategy.
Precisely. By actively highlighting studying and business investment as primary motivations, they are signaling this desire to attract a much younger, more economically active demographic than the word retiree usually implies.
And the perks they offer reflect that ambition completely. Like, the SRV isn't just a colorful stamp in your passport. It is a special non-immigrant visa that grants permanent residency and multiple entry privileges.
Which means you can come and go as you please, no questions asked.
Right. But the real magic, the thing that actually makes this valuable, is in the bureaucratic exemptions. I look at this thing like a bureaucratic VIP all-access pass, or like a skeleton key?
A skeleton key is the perfect analogy because the exemptions are substantial,
Yeah.
and they're specifically designed to remove the daily friction of being a foreigner in a new country.
Let's talk about what that key unlocks because it is huge. If you have an SRRV, you are exempt from securing the Bureau of Immigration ACRI card.
Which is a big deal.
It's a huge deal. That's the standard alien registration card that most expats have to constantly, painfully renew. And it doesn't stop there. You are exempt from needing a separate student visa if you decide to study.
And crucially, you are exempt from needing a separate work visa.
That is massive. It unlocks the ability to work, study, and travel without the usual crippling red tape that foreign nationals face when trying to integrate into a new economy.
And let's not overlook the upfront financial incentives meant to smooth the actual physical move either. The PRA outlines an exemption from paying the Philippine travel tax.
Which really adds up if you are flying in and out of a country frequently for business or family.
Oh, absolutely. Plus, they offer an exemption from customs duties and taxes on the importation of personal effects and household goods worth up to $7,000.
$7,000. That covers shipping your favorite armchair, your desktop setup, essentially your entire life in a shipping container. They are literally subsidizing the friction of your relocation.
They want to make it as painless as possible.
So, if the government is offering this massive skeleton key package of benefits to make life easy, the obvious next question is who are they letting in? And what is the real cost of this VIP pass? Because governments do not just hand out permanent residency for free.
Exactly. And this is where the program structure reveals its strategic brilliance. The baseline age requirement to apply is just 40 years old.
Just 40.
Yeah. There's a note in the documentation regarding a review date of September 1st, 2025, but the fact remains that 40 is incredibly young for anything labeled a retirement visa. Most countries demand you be at least 60 or 65.
And dependents are welcome too, right?
They are. Your legal spouse and unmarried children under 21 can join you on the same application.
So you could be a 40-year-old mid-career professional bringing your spouse and your teenager, and you are all covered under a retirement scheme. That is wild to me.
It really redefines the word retirement.
It does. Now, the visa is split into different tiers. Let's look at the primary one, the workhorse of the program, which is the SRRV Classic. If you are a single applicant, you need to prove a reliable monthly pension of $800 or $1,000 for a couple.
Right. But the monthly pension is just the baseline proof of income. The real hurdle is the mandatory visa deposit.
Okay, lay it on me.
For those 50 and above, that deposit is $30,000. But if you fall into that younger 40 to 49 bracket, those prime working years, the deposit jumps significantly to $50,000.
Wow, 50 grand.
Plus, there's a $1,500 application fee and a $360 annual renewal fee.
Okay, hold on. At first glance, the idea of handing over $50,000 in cash to a foreign government just for the privilege of a visa sounds terrifying.
It's a huge commitment.
It's a massive liquidity trap. I'd be incredibly hesitant to just lock my savings away in a government vault halfway across the world.
And if that were the case, very few people would actually do it. But here is the critical pivot of the SRV Classic. That deposit isn't just sitting in a government bank account gathering dust and losing value to inflation.
Okay.
The PRA explicitly states that the visa deposit is convertible to active real estate investments.
See, that is the big aha moment for me.
It changes the entire financial calculus. You can use that $30,000 or $50,000 to purchase a condominium unit or secure a long-term lease on a house and lot.
So the government isn't just taking your money for safekeeping. They are effectively forcing you to invest in their local real estate market.
Exactly. You get the permanent residency and a place to live, and the host country gets an immediate, locked-in injection of foreign direct investment into their property sector.
It is an incredibly smart trade-off. They are guaranteeing that anyone who moves there is physically invested in the local economy. But, and here's where it gets really interesting, there is a second main tier to this program called the SRRV Courtesy.
Yes, the courtesy tier.
And this is where the financial rules we just talked about completely change. The Courtesy tier is reserved for a very specific, curated list of foreign nationals. We are talking retired diplomats, retired officers from international organizations like the UN, the World Bank, the IMF, and the Asian Development Bank.
It also notably includes retired military personnel who provided military aid and training to the Philippine government via a defense treaty.
Okay, makes sense.
But the most intriguing categories by far are philanthropists and what the government broadly terms high achievers in academic, business, arts, culture, music, sports.
Right, high achievers. And if you qualify for this courtesy tier, the financial barriers absolutely plummet. Instead of locking up $30,000 or $50,000, the required deposit drops to an almost negligible $1,500 for those 50 and older.
And just $6,000 for those between 40 and 49.
That is quite a discount. And that $360 annual fee slashed to just $100 or even $50 for some specific pensioners. But I have to push back here, though.
Yeah.
Is this courtesy visa essentially the Philippines offering a massive financial discount to reverse the brain drain? Are they just actively trying to buy global talent and prestige?
Well, I wouldn't use the word buy because the individuals still have to choose to move there, but they are undeniably and aggressively incentivizing global talent to relocate.
Yeah, the better way to put it.
It is a highly targeted strategic approach to immigration. By drastically lowering the financial hurdle for diplomats, recognized artists, successful business people, and academics, the Philippines is intentionally enriching its own local culture and economy.
They're importing human capital.
Essentially, yes. They are saying, if you bring your global expertise, your international network, and your prestige to our shores, we will give you a nearly free pass to live here permanently. It transforms a simple immigration policy into an active tool for national development.
It's basically treating residency like a highly competitive scholarship program.
I love that framing. Okay, so let's say you have the $50,000 for the classic, or you have the stellar international resume for the courtesy tier. You conceptually meet the qualifications.
Right.
But having the right bank account or the right background is one thing. Actually surviving the paperwork to get the visa approved is another. So how do they verify all of this without it turning into an administrative nightmare?
Well, the documentary requirements are stringent, exactly as you would expect for a permanent residency program.
I would hope so.
An applicant needs a medical clearance, a formal police clearance from their home country, and if they've already been residing in the Philippines for more than 90 days, an additional clearance from the National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI. There's also a requisite Bureau of Immigration clearance certificate.
And do not forget the highly specific photo requirements.
Yeah.
8 2x2 photos with a white background taken within the last 3 months.
Huh.
Classic bureaucratic
Oh,
detail.
yeah. They love their specific photo dimensions. But more importantly, you need apostilled and authenticated translated documents and bank certificates proving your visa deposit was inwardly remitted from abroad. This is a mountain of paperwork.
And it doesn't end when you get the visa either. You have ongoing obligations.
Right. It's a relationship.
You have to renew your PRA ID yearly. You have to formally inform them a month before you convert your deposit into that condo we talked about. And you must formally sign an agreement to abide by the Philippine Constitution.
Exactly. And navigating all of this isn't something you are really meant to do alone. In fact, the system is designed to prevent you from doing it alone. Which brings us to a very unique structural aspect of the SRRV program. The marketers.
Yes, the marketers.
The mandated middlemen. The PRA presentation spends a significant amount of time outlining the incredibly strict rules for what they call accredited marketers. These are private entities or individuals authorized by the government to assist you.
And the rules clearly state that marketers must accompany applicants when filing at the PRA office.
Right. If you try to show up alone, you're considered a walk-in, and you need prior notice or specific documentation just to be seen. So what does this all mean? To me, it seems like the PRA relies entirely on this deputized army of private marketers rather than handling the customer service internally.
It does feel a bit outsourced.
Have they just built an artificial microeconomy of fixers and consultants just to navigate their own visa processing? Is this just government-mandated rent-seeking?
I can definitely see why it looks that way on the surface. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, this highly policed marketer ecosystem serves a much more vital purpose. Think of the marketer not as a fixer, but as a legally required Sherpa.
That's Sherpa. Okay.
The bureaucracy is a complex and potentially dangerous mountain. You are required to hire a local guide so you don't fall off a legal cliff.
Yeah.
On a macro level, it protects both the host country and the vulnerable applicant.
Protects them from what, exactly?
International relocation is an industry completely ripe for fraud, exploitation, and money laundering. The PRA places immense legal and professional pressure on these marketers to keep the system clean.
So the burden is on them.
Exactly. The documentation explicitly outlines the severe penalties marketers face. They can be immediately terminated for submitting fake or spurious documents on behalf of a client or for making false declarations.
Okay, that makes sense. You hold the guide responsible for the climber. But some of the rules for these Sherpas are fiercely competitive. I was genuinely amused by the fact that a marketer can lose their government accreditation for pirating another's prospective client.
It's a cutthroat business.
It is. And they also mentioned termination for committing acts, quote, inimical to the retirement industry. That is such a beautifully specific, dramatic phrase. Inimical.
It sounds incredibly dramatic, but it shows exactly how seriously the government takes the reputational risk of this program. Inimical to the industry essentially means anything that makes the Philippines look like a bad place to retire.
Ah, I see.
These marketers aren't just informal guides operating out of a coffee shop. They must be formally registered businesses. They must have SEC Securities and Exchange Commission registration, a local mayor's permit, and Bureau of Internal Revenue registration just to legally operate.
So by forcing applicants to use these highly regulated, fully vetted local businesses, the government is creating a mandatory, guided hand-holding experience for the retiree while simultaneously outsourcing the initial vetting process to the private sector.
That's the brilliance of it.
The government holds the reputational risk over the marketers' heads to ensure they only bring in legitimate applicants.
Exactly. It shields the nation from fraudulent applicants while ensuring the foreign national actually successfully navigates the system.
Okay, so let's follow the timeline here. These carefully vetted individuals, guided by their heavily regulated Sherpas, hand over their inward remittances and finally get their SRRV skeleton key. They are officially in.
They made it.
So where do they actually go? Where in the Philippines are they choosing to live and invest that real estate money? The PRA numbers give us the hard data on gross enrollment by region, and it's super illuminating.
The geographic data reveals a lot about the true nature and diversity of these so-called retirees. You might expect a mass influx of expats to just cluster in a single megacity or perhaps overrun one specific tropical island, creating this massive, isolated bubble.
But the spread is incredibly diverse. Let's look at the math because it's fascinating. The leading region for SRRV holders is Calabarzon at 7.33%.
Which is the heavily industrialized suburban region immediately south and east of Metro Manila.
Right, but right on its heels, practically tied, is Central Visayas at 7.30%. That's a completely different vibe. That's the Central Islands, places famous for beaches, diving, and tourism.
And then you have Central Luzon right behind them at 6.71%, which is north of Manila, an area known for agriculture but also massive economic freeport zones.
And the numbers trickle all the way down through the entire archipelago. You have the Davao region in the deep south at 2.22%, northern Mindanao at 1.21%, and even the Zamboanga Peninsula at 3.27%.
It really is spread out.
Here is the real takeaway from those numbers, I think. If the most popular region in the entire country only captures 7.33% of the expats, that means over 92% of SRRV holders are scattered everywhere else.
Yeah, that is a huge percentage.
It highlights an extreme fragmentation. They are actively dispersing across thousands of islands. They aren't just holing up in a single gentrified expat bubble like you see in certain coastal towns in Spain or Mexico where the locals are completely priced out.
And this extreme geographic spread perfectly validates the varied motivations we discussed at the very beginning of the deep dive.
How so?
Well, the individuals seeking a weekend getaway or a quiet tropical retirement are likely the ones driving that 7.3% in the beach regions of Central Visayas.
Right, the traditional retirees.
But the younger demographic, the ones utilizing the SRRV to start businesses, or the 40-year-olds utilizing the waiver on the work visa, they are heading straight to Calabarzon or Central Luzon to be near the industrial parks and economic hubs.
That makes total sense.
The visa is flexible by design, and the geographic data proves that the applicants are using that flexibility to its absolute fullest. They're integrating into local economies rather than just building foreign enclaves.
It's a brilliant socioeconomic outcome when you really look at all the moving parts. The SRRV isn't just a standard, sleepy retirement visa where you go to play out your twilight years on a golf course. It is a multi-tiered, highly strategic mobility program.
It really is.
The Philippine government is essentially trading bureaucratic freedom, waiving those work and student visas, dropping the travel taxes, and offering real estate investment opportunities in exchange for exactly what their developing country needs: a guaranteed influx of foreign capital and a targeted, curated injection of global talent.
It is a remarkable case study in modern immigration policy.
Mhm.
They have successfully commodified permanent residency, but in a way that feels mutually beneficial rather than exploitative.
A win-win.
Exactly. The applicant gets unparalleled freedom and a dramatically lower cost of living, while the host nation gets localized, foreign direct investment, job creation through that entire marketer ecosystem, and a decentralized economic boost to regional provinces.
And for you listening, whether you are a 40-year-old high-achieving executive looking to start a tech business in Southeast Asia, or someone simply looking for a cost-effective, sun-drenched home to escape the brutal winter snow, understanding the mechanics of programs like the SRV is crucial.
It really is the first step.
It's the very first step to truly hacking the system and becoming a global citizen. It proves that the velvet rope into paradise isn't always permanently locked. You just need to know which tier you actually qualify for and which Sherpa to call to guide you up the mountain.
This raises an important question, though, as we look to the broader future of global mobility. We are rapidly entering an era where remote work is making the average knowledge worker infinitely more mobile.
Oh, totally. You can work from anywhere now.
Right. And because of that, the traditional rigid concept of retirement, being tied to a specific age of 65, is completely blurring.
Exactly. Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to chew on today. As the global workforce becomes entirely untethered from physical offices and national borders, will traditional age-based retirement visas become completely obsolete?
It's a real possibility.
Are we moving toward a near future dominated entirely by these competitive, investment and talent-driven lifestyle visas, where countries are actively, aggressively bidding against each other for your residency and your tax dollars? Next time you find yourself staring out the window, imagining packing up those cardboard boxes and escaping to a tropical archipelago, remember, if you have the right skills or the right capital, they might just be as eager to have you as you are to be there.